political analyst Marcus Kolga. He joins us live from Toronto. Thanks so much for being with us. First, what do you make of this result? I mean, obviously the opposition is crying foul, but is it possible that Lukashenko won over 80% support?
Well, it's unlikely. I think a lot of analysts and observers of Belarus predicted this sort of an outcome, this quote unquote sort of landslide victory for Lukashenko. A number of polling stations, according to some reports, 250 of them, independent ones or more independent ones, where the results weren't rigged, presented a very different result. Actually, one that was completely flipped, whereby the opposition leader, Svetlana, Tikhanouskaya, actually got around 70% of the result, and in various different independent polls, exit polls in foreign countries where Belarusians were able to vote in embassies, the numbers were about the same. So it's very, very difficult, based on those numbers and the fact that so many Belarusians took to the streets over the past 2 months, and certainly last night, it's very difficult to believe that Alexander Lukashenko truly achieved an 80% victory in the polls yesterday.
Still, though, do you think he may have just secured a majority, even if no results were tampered with?
It's unlikely. We won't know unless those true results are released, and it's unlikely that they ever will. There were images yesterday of bags of ballots, perhaps ballots being removed from polling stations. So we won't know. And this is one of the things that the opposition is calling for now, is a new election that is free and transparent. And unless we have a truly transparent election, we won't know, because there were no officials that were allowed to monitor these elections as well. So we just don't know.
Okay. What kind of Belarus, though, is he taking power in now? Will he have to, reign over chaos if these protests continue and opposition continues to grow?
Well, it's certain that his own power has been greatly diminished after these elections, and certainly over the past 2 months. The fact that so many Belarusians took to the streets, not just in Minsk, but in rural areas, it's a clear demonstration that they're challenging his power. And we know that there's a new protest that's being called for tonight. It's just starting as we speak right now in Minsk, in downtown Minsk. And there's calls for a general strike. And there was already a strike in Belarus's largest steelworks today. They've agreed to do that. So things are only going to get much more difficult for Alexander Lukashenko over the coming hours and days. And we'll see how the government reacts today to the protest. I don't imagine that there'll be much difference in the level of violence versus yesterday's crackdown on the protesters.
Right. Shouldn't expect him to be conciliatory. We could say it that way. Let me ask you, though. I mean, he's been described so many times as, Europe's last dictator. But how much do Belarusians actually identify with Europe? I mean, do they look east or do they look west for their standards and guidance, if I can put it that way?
Well, I think with Lukashenko, Belarus has been forced in many ways to look to the east for economic support. Putin has ensured that Lukashenko, at least the Belarusian government, is reliant on him for its survival. But I think, again, the demonstrations over the past 2 months clearly demonstrate that Belarusians themselves aren't so sure that the East is where the answer is. I think that many of them are looking to the West. Let's not forget that Lukashenko has been in power for a quarter of a century, and his people have never really realized the opportunities of freedom and even the possibility of connecting with the West to become a truly European nation. And I think that the Belarusians right now are prepared to do that. That's what they've said over the past 2 months with these mass protests. And this is something that Lukashenko is really going to have to grapple with, his people wanting to move west while he wants to remain sort of in between, or perhaps just in the east. One thing we do know, he just wants to remain in power, and whoever supports him, he'll accept that support. And it looks like that support right now is coming from the east in the form of Vladimir Putin.
Okay, Marcus, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much, as always, for being with us there from Toronto.